Welcome to the session on safety and incident management for when every second counts. Feel free to use the chat to drop any questions, and at the end, we'll have a live Q&A. My name is Chad Ravancho, Manager of Solutions Consulting here at Quickbase, and I'm excited to chat about something that's a game changer in our industry, safety and efficiency. Now, we have the old way of doing things, and frankly, that was a paperwork nightmare, filling out forms for every little incident, chasing down permits, and keeping track of it all. It was like trying to juggle while riding a unicycle. But here's the good news. We've got a solution that makes our lives a whole lot easier. And this isn't just about cutting down on paperwork. It's about creating a workplace where safety and productivity go hand in hand. We're talking about real-time updates, crystal clear accountability, and a bird's eye view into our operations that ensures we're always ahead of the game. So let's get ready to dive into our safety app suite, roll up our sleeves, and see how this app suite isn't just changing the game, but it's setting a whole new standard. There are 4 apps in the safety app suite, and we're going to go into each of these and look at them in a detailed way. We have our OSHA incident tracking app, OSHA site safety audits, hazard identification and risk assessments, and our permit to work app. Picture this, we've got a company that makes electronic parts. Up until now, whenever someone got hurt or there was some kind of accident at work, they'd have to go old school, filling out paperwork by hand. Imagine that, every cut, every slip, every report done with pen and paper. And it's not just one form. First, you have to scribble down details on a form 301, and then you log it in a big book, the form 300. And at the end of every year, the safety manager would spend weeks, yes, weeks, just to put together a summary in a form 300A. And then after all that, send it over to OSHA. Think about the hassle of all of that, the manual pain. Team members are getting a real workout just by filling out these forms over and over. And the safety officer, they're spinning around like a DJ, moving info from those paper forms to the computer. And the costs, they're not just physical. We're talking about real money. All that time spent on paperwork means less time doing the real work. Plus, if the numbers don't add up, or there's a typo or a mistake, you get hit with an OSHA fine. And let's talk about the big one, safety. If reporting is difficult to do, accidents might not get reported quickly or at all. And if we're slow to figure out what went wrong, it's only a matter of time before it happens again, or maybe even worse. So you see, it's not just about paperwork. It's about keeping people safe, saving time, and saving money. And that's where we need to make a change. Now, let's contrast this scenario with managing Form 300s and Form 301s in Quickbase. Quickbase is like a turbo button for dealing with OSHA stuff. Workers can zip through incident reports using a Form 301 right in the app. No more drowning in paper or wrestling with spreadsheets. It's all about making things snappy and smooth. And so I'm going to go through filling out a Form 301 here in our Quickbase app. So on the dashboard, I've clicked on starting a new Form 301. We can select an establishment name, a job site within that establishment, and pick an employee. And I'll just briefly go over some of the data points that we capture within a 301 case: date of illness or injury, time of event, was that employee hospitalized, where did the event occur, and these more text details about the incident that can be included here. We also have a section for treatment details, and you can track, facilities within the range of your sites, so you can, select where they actually go, and any other related case information that might be tied to this particular incident. Now, I'm going to cut over to an existing form that's been filled out. And so here we have those establishment details all filled out. We have that case information. This is anxiety due to illness. They were feeling dizzy. We have the treatment facility all detailed here. Now, this is the Form 301. And when we submit this, we are now going to submit this to a Form 300, which helps the safety officer at the end of the year, because now we're just tracking the 301 and we're putting it right into the Form 300, so they don't have to go find it later in the year. So think of it like an autopilot for paperwork. The system is automatically filling out the Form 300 for you in that last step. No more typing things out line by line, doing dual entry or sweating over typos. It's a real time saver and cuts down on slip-ups. So let's take a look at how this app enables you to stay on top of OSHA regulations and how that becomes a whole lot easier in this app. The app does a lot of heavy lifting by automatically knocking out the Form 300A for you every year. That means it's sending everything, potentially, if you decide to do it more in an integrated way, sending everything to OSHA on time without you having to lift a finger. And so I'm going to look at my Form 300A records here. And we'll click into one of the 300 A's that we have currently in our database. And you'll see here that we're already summarizing all of the necessary detail required for a Form 300A. We even have the list of 301s that have occurred. And so we have high-level information about the injury, their days away from work, etc. But if we needed more detail about that case, we can click right into it and see the rest of the case information. Thanks to Quickbase's integration and API capabilities, after this Form 300 is completed, you could send this entire report in an integrated way to OSHA via their API. So it's all about getting things done quicker and nailing the accuracy every time. We'll cover a little bit on safety and productivity. This app is really like a safety detective. It's got all these smart reports that spotlight where things might be going sideways. So you can see exactly how safety slip-ups are hitting the numbers, and it gives you the tools to help fix those issues before they turn into really big problems. And so, I've referenced this dashboard, but this really gives you a clear visibility into all the information that's being tracked within your 300s and your 301s. If I were to hover over this pie chart, you can see it's not just a chart, but it's actually interactive. I can click on this piece of the pie and have that be a filter that shows me all of the Apollo 301s that are in flight. If I go back to the main dashboard, these tabs show me at even more like in detail 300s broken down by fatal accidents, the number of cases of days away from work, etc. And so, reporting is very comprehensive in this app. Form 300, 301s at a more detailed level, 300s at a detailed level, and this list of reports help break down these incidents even further by year, cases by year, incidents by establishment, etc. And so you can really start to get clear visibility across all of your information. And having all of these reports at your fingertips means you're really getting the full picture of how safety issues affect the workflow and the bottom line. So to sum it up, Quickbase isn't just taking the grunt work out of incident reports and record keeping, it's about turbocharging the whole safety and productivity engine in an organization. Let's talk about a construction company that builds commercial spaces. Right now, they're doing things the hard way. Picture this, their safety team walk around with clipboards, checking off things on paper, and when they need to fix a problem, well, they're sending emails back and forth, trying to track everything on spreadsheets. You can imagine how things might slip through the cracks. Now, let's dive into how this old school method is really hitting them where it hurts. Audits, yeah, they do them, but it's so hit or miss because everything's done by hand. They plan to check everything's okay on site, but it's so easy to forget or postpone, so some dangers don't get spotted. And without a proper checklist, they can miss something big, which means accidents could happen, and that's a big no-no, especially with safety regulations breathing down their neck. Now there's their safety strategy, or really the lack of one. If something almost goes wrong, they might not even talk about it. That means they're missing chances to stop accidents before they even happen. It's all about reacting when things go south instead of preventing problems from happening in the first place. And as for keeping track of everything, forget about it. There's no one-stop shop to see all the audits, fixes needed, or maintenance records. Nobody's really on the hook for making sure problems don't get solved, which means things get fixed much slower. In a nutshell, they're stuck in the past and it's just not efficient. It's also very risky. They need a game plan that's proactive, not just playing catch up when things go sideways. Now let's contrast this scenario with how managing audits would be like in Quickbase. Think of the Safety Audits app as your personal assistant for safety checks. Companies can set up both regular checkups and even those just in case ones, unplanned audits with just a few clicks. This means that they're always on top of their game, making sure every inch of the construction site is checked out regularly and nothing sketchy slips by. It's all about keeping those hard hats safe before anything goes sideways. What we're looking at here is our main dashboard in our audit app. And from here, I'm going to start a new audit. And much like the previous app, we can select our establishment by name, find our job site, find the building, assign an auditor. And so we can fill out all of the header level audit details. Now, one really great piece of this form is if we were to perform a full audit, this would encapsulate all of the questions across many different sections into this audit. Now, if I were to go to a partial audit, I can define the categories that I need to review instead. And so there are over 335 questions across 25 different categories that can be included in a single audit. So I'm actually going to cut over to one that I've already started. And so here are those high-level audit detail information. We've defined a couple of categories here to be audited, and we have a quick summary on this first tab. It shows me the number of checklists, the number of unaudited checklists, et cetera. And so it's breaking down that information into these little summaries. Here we have our full audit status, and we can see here areas that are unaudited, ones that have warning, ones that are compliant. And so these tabs help break down from a full audit standpoint to ones that are unaudited, ones that are compliant and non-compliant. We also have some visual aids up here that give us an audit score on completeness and how we're doing in terms of compliance. So with the standardized checklist containing 335 questions across 25 different categories, inspectors can systematically identify and address safety hazards, reducing the risk of accidents and OSHA violations. This app is also about stopping problems before they start and fixing any that pop up as fast as we can. So if there's something not quite right during an audit, this app has you covered. It'll flag it so you can jump back in and fix it and before it becomes a bigger issue. We'll walk through how it's different when everything is up to code versus when it's not. And the best part, it's a breeze to kick off a plan to fix it when things aren't up to snuff. And so I'm back on our main dashboard. I'm going to view my audits again, and let's go back into that same audit. Now, I covered this list of points to be audited. Some have a status of unaudited, some have a status of warning and compliant. Now let's audit this one. So let's say this one is compliant, right? We can add some findings here, all good, and we can save and close it. But in the event that it is non-compliant, we automatically include a corrective action button, so it prompts the user to add a corrective action when things are not compliant. And so let's go back and take a look at this one here. We can come in and add a corrective action, add necessary details here and save it. Now, this will automatically get logged back into that audit that is non-compliant. And my last topic within this app is covering how this app enables enhanced visibility and accountability. Really touching on this app's visibility into the data within it, it's like a high-tech crystal ball for safety on the job. It's got these great dashboards and reports, and we lay it all out for you. It's like a bird's eye view of how safe things are ticking along. Managers can get to see the big picture, spot any trouble spots, and figure out where to send help or resources. It's all about making smart moves and staying ahead of the game. And so I want to draw attention to the dashboards here. This is our homepage. Across the bottom, we have these various tabs. And if I click on the audits tab, we have great filters that allow me to filter by job site, by auditor name, by audit type. We also have a great list of executive dashboards. And so like with any other report we have on a dashboard, each of these are clickable. And we're starting to break down the information that makes it relevant for our executives. How many audits are 75% compliant? How many are 25 or between 50 and 75? And each of these are clickable. And so, with clear workflows for audits, corrective actions, near misses, preventative actions, we're able to manage safety-related tasks more efficiently. This app is a total game changer for construction crews. It's got their backs when spotting hazards before they turn into headaches, pushing for safety moves in advance, and making sure everyone can see how things are shaping up safety-wise. It smooths out the whole audit process, cuts down on accident risks, keeps companies in line with OSHA rules, and most importantly, it's all about making sure the folks on the ground go home safe every day. We're taking a peek at how some companies are still tackling safety the old-fashioned way. Imagine safety officers with clipboards in hand, ticking boxes on paper lists. And the way they spot hazards, well, it's pretty much a guessing game. Now, there's the kind of stuff they might be running into, hit and miss hazard spottings. Their checks on safety are all over the place, not regular or reliable, and it depends on who's looking. Some serious risks might just slip by because they're not being systematic about it, which could lead to accidents or getting caught in hot water by safety regulations. They play catch up with risks. There's no central hub where they keep track of what's risky, so figuring out what to fix and where to put their effort and money into is kind of a mess. They're jotting down risks on the fly without really weighing everything that matters, like who's involved or how they work, the gear they use, the whole 9 yards. That means they could be missing big pieces of the puzzle. And they're always one step behind. These guys are basically crossing bridges when they come to them, fixing things after they break rather than keeping them from breaking in the first place. And because they're not keeping a detailed score of risks and what they're doing about them, they're not really sure if they're getting better at this whole safety thing. In a nutshell, they're stuck in a loop, reacting instead of preventing, which can be risky business. Now let's contrast this scenario with how Quickbase handles hazard identification risk assessment. So you know how sometimes spotting dangers at work can be a bit of a hit or miss? Well, not anymore. We've got the hazard assessment survey in the app suite that's super thorough. It's like a safety detective that goes through 42 different categories and asks 116 questions, making sure that no stone is left unturned. With this kind of deep dive, companies won't miss a thing, keeping hazard spotting on point and consistent. So we'll cover the dashboard in a later sections. And firstly, I want to cover the start of a new assessment. And so we're going to start a new assessment here. And we'll find an organization, much like our other demos, we have these various filtered kind of cascading behavior where an organization may have different job sites, etc. We can define whether this is planned or unplanned and pick someone who it's assigned to, set a date, and like our audit app, we can do a full audit, which will encapsulate all questions, but we can also define a partial audit and manually select the categories that we want to evaluate. And so I'm going to go over to an assessment already in progress here. And so based on the categories selected, we can see the checklist of the information that needs to be completed. We can answer these audit questions with a response directly from this form, whether it's yes or no. And if it's yes, there is no real corrective action, so we can save that. But if it's no, we're going to now introduce a hazard classification set that's much like the audit questions. Here we have 30 types of hazards and 112 different subtypes that are all related to its type. And so when you select a hazard classification, you'll then be able to define the hazard type as well as the hazard subtype. And so doing this now begins the workflow into creating a risk register. We've seen how we can start an assessment, identify risk, and categorize hazards within a risk. But here's the real deal on nipping risks in the bud. Risk control, the risk control part of this app is like a strategic advisor for safety. It guides companies on the best moves to either totally ditch risks or keep them under wraps. This way, any big scary risks are dialed down to be as tiny as humanly possible, or what the pros call as low as reasonably practicable. And so what we're going to do here is show how the risk register wrangles all of that information across the assessment, across the questions being asked, identifiable risk, and the hazards associated, and show those on a matrix. And so what we're going to do here is open up one of the risk registers. We're going to see the risks identified, and they're all listed here. And we also have this great matrix, which lays out the inherent risk based on risks that have been categorized as 1A, 1B, etc. And what's great about this risk matrix is it allows you to click on the tile and show exactly what risk is associated with that particular part of the matrix. If we go back, we can click on this 3D risk. There's actually two within that. And that is all categorized by this formula field, which will help map risks back onto that particular matrix. The risk matrix feature in the app is a real game changer. It's like a map that helps companies see just how bad a hazard could get and how likely it is to happen. This makes talking about risks and making smarter choices a whole lot clearer. So to wrap this all up, this hazard assessment, risk identification, and control app is basically a superhero toolkit for companies. It's all about getting ahead of the game with a solid plan to spot and sort out risks. Thanks to its thorough checks and balances, the app is great at keeping workers safe and healthy, staying on the right side of the law, and most importantly, keeping those workplace mishaps to a minimum. Let's picture a massive manufacturing company. Right now, they're juggling safety the old school way, with stacks of paper for any risky work that needs doing. Folks are literally filling out forms and waiting on emails just to get the green light. Here's what their everyday chaos might include: permit puzzles. They're swamped trying to keep up with all the permits for jobs like welding, working in tight spaces, or messing with live wires. Since everything's done by hand, it's a waiting game for approvals and nobody's quite sure who's got what permit. Let's talk about a communication mess. Updates on permits are bouncing around in emails and calls, so it's like nobody really knows who's doing what. Getting all the right people to sign off on a job, it's like herding cats and really easy for stuff to slip through the cracks. And then there's playing by the rules, making sure everyone's got the right skills for the job and are following safety measures required by the permit. It can be a big hit or miss, which could spell trouble with safety laws. Without a way to watch over all the permits going on, they could miss a big safety red flag, and no one wants that on their watch. Now, talk about a communication upgrade. This permit to work app is like having a virtual meeting room. Everyone involved in the permit process gets a direct line into the information to coordinate and get things moving without a hitch. And so these tabs really enable individuals on the permit team to get information very quickly. We have the permits broken down by their different statuses. We have a separate dashboard for permits we need to apply for, ones that are in approval status that need to be approved or rejected, and issue permits, ones to prepare the site. So these tabs along the bottom really help team members contribute and contribute to the workflow. There's also another great feature here where we can drive a completely different experience for a separate type of role. And so I'm going to change my role as the main administrator of this app to a permit coordinator and see the dashboard completely change. And so one of the unique capabilities of Quickbase is to drive unique permissioning based on your role. And so as a permit coordinator, I may not have access to everything. I may just be able to see different permits and their status and take action as needed. And here's our take on stepping up safety and playing by the rules. With the permit app, companies can make sure everyone on the floor has the credentials to do all the compliance within a permit, making sure that they're wearing the right PPE, making sure that they're qualified. And so what we're going to do is click on the work crew on site button here, and we see that there's currently 85 within this set of data. That those 85 individuals are now broken down across the different crews. And if I were to click on one of these, it's going to break it down even further and see each individual that rolls up into that work crew. Now, when I click on the work crew, I can now see which permit they're tied to. And now I can work my way back up. And so if I click on the permit, now, if I need to make sure that they're following the rules, we need to make sure that per the permit, each individual on the work crew is following these precautions in PPE. In summary, this app is a powerhouse for managing risky business. It makes sure the workflow is on point, the communication is crystal clear, and safety is top-notch. Bottom line, it's about keeping things safe, sound, and up to code. Let's wrap this up by talking about what our safety app suite can do. Quickbase has designed these apps to make managing safety and staying compliant a whole lot easier. Instead of getting bogged down with paperwork, we're making things much more efficient. This means we're not only cutting down the costs and reducing accidents, but we're also building a workplace that's really focused on safety. And that's the key. We're adding real value and stepping up our game in providing solutions when it comes to how we operate day to day. In short, these apps help organizations make solid gains in safety and efficiency, even when rules and regulations seem really complicated. With our safety app suite, you can handle these challenges with ease and confidence. All these apps today are readily available in our Quickbase Exchange. You can find them by searching by the names in the abstract. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We're going to now roll into live Q&A.